All right, let's just pick one day out of the year, totally at random. How about February 15th? Sounds pretty normal, right? Just another Tuesday or Saturday. But what if I told you that this one single day holds an entire secret history, a hidden web of genius, rivalry, and incredible discovery that stretches back for centuries?
So is it really just another day on the calendar? Well, I think you're about to find out that there's really no such thing as an ordinary day, especially when you're talking about the history of math and science.
I mean, just look at this list. February 15th is absolutely packed. You've got the births of giants like Galileo and Alfred North Whitehead, and it's also the day we lost huge figures like the physicist Richard Feynman. Some of these are household names for sure, but others, well, they have stories that are just as amazing. So let's pull on a few of these threads and see where they lead.
First up, let's talk about how this one date acts like a set of cosmic bookends. It connects two monumental figures who, in a way, started and finished a massive scientific revolution.
So on one end, you have Galileo, born on February 15th, 1564. I mean, this is the guy who pointed a telescope at the sky and basically changed humanity's place in the universe. He's the father of modern science. And then, centuries later, you have Richard Feynman, this absolute titan of modern physics, who died on the very same day in 1988. He helped us wrap our heads around the bizarre world of quantum mechanics. It's pretty incredible, isn't it? A single date marks a profound beginning and a monumental end in our quest for knowledge.
And what's really wild is that this connection is perfectly captured in a letter from Isaac Newton. And get this, the letter was dated, you guessed it, February 15th. In it, he wrote that famous line, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." He was talking about people exactly like Galileo, the giants whose work paved the way for everyone who came after. It's such a perfect reminder that science isn't just a series of random breakthroughs, it's a long chain, linking people like Galileo and Feynman across time.
You know, speaking of time, that brings us to our next theme. For some of these pioneers, their big moment didn't come until long after they were gone. Their ideas were just way too far ahead of the curve.
Take Pierre Verhulst. He died on February 15th, 1849. Now, he came up with something called the logistic function. See, before him, people thought populations just grew exponentially, up and up forever. But Verhulst was like, hang on, that's not how the real world works. There are limits, not enough food, not enough space. His idea showed how growth starts fast, but then it naturally slows down and levels off. It's a concept that is absolutely fundamental to ecology and economics today.
But here's the crazy part. After Verhulst died, his work was basically lost, completely forgotten. It wasn't until 1920, that's more than 70 years later, that other scientists rediscovered the idea on their own, and people finally realized how important it was. I mean, talk about being ahead of your time.
And he wasn't alone in that struggle. On this same day back in 1829, Joaquim Gomes de Souza was born. Now, this guy was Brazil's first ever mathematics PhD, a brilliant mind doing cutting-edge work. He sent his papers to the biggest scientific institution in the world, the French Academy of Sciences, hoping for some recognition. But the Big Shot Review Committee, they just never got back to him. Total silence.
So why the radio silence? Well, Gomes de Souza had a theory. He chalked it up to petite jealousy, or, petty jealousy. He figured that the established guys in Paris just didn't want to give credit to some outsider from Brazil. It's a powerful reminder that science isn't always a pure search for truth. It's run by humans, and it can get political.
And that's actually the perfect segue into our next section, the human equation, because it's so easy to forget that these historical figures weren't just brains in a jar. They were complex, passionate, and sometimes they were kind of jerks.
Case in point, Paul Koebe, born on February 15th. By all accounts, an absolute genius. But he had a bit of a reputation for, let's say, borrowing ideas. The most famous story is about a young student named Richard Courant, who shared his unpublished thesis work with Koebe. What happened next? Koebe allegedly rushed out a paper on the exact same subject, claiming he came up with it all by himself.
Well, Courant's friends were not about to let that slide. They decided it was payback time. So they built this ridiculous contraption with an alarm clock, stuffed it into a chamber pot of all things, and hid it under Cooper Bay's lectern. And right in the middle of class, this alarm just starts going off at random times. Can you imagine? It just goes to show you academic rivalries aren't always fought with equations. Sometimes they're fought with pranks.
But genius isn't always about rivalry. Sometimes it's about pure resilience. Let me tell you about William Donkin, born on this day in 1814. This man was a professor at Oxford, and just look at the range of stuff he worked on. Astronomy, super complex math, the attraction of solids, and also ancient Greek music and acoustics. The guy was a true polymath.
But here's what makes his story truly remarkable. He did all of this while battling severe illness for his entire adult life. Old records call it a delicacy of constitution, which basically means he was constantly sick, always having to travel to warmer places just to stay healthy. The fact that he could produce so much incredible work while facing that constant struggle, well, that's just a testament to an unbelievable strength of will.
So we've heard these stories of triumph and struggle, of jealousy and unbelievable brilliance. So what's the big takeaway here? What does this one random day really tell us about everything else?
Well, here's the core idea. February 15th isn't special because it's unique. It's special because it's a perfect example. It's a tiny snapshot of what scientific history is really like. Every single day of the year is just like this, layered with these incredible stories of great beginnings, quiet endings, celebrated ideas, and forgotten pioneers.
Think about it. There are 365 days in a year, and every single one of them holds its own universe of stories just like these. A hidden history just waiting for someone to look a little closer.
And that leaves us with one final thought. We've talked about the giants and the forgotten heroes of February 15th, but whose story are we missing from the 14th or from the 16th? Whose story is happening right now, just waiting for a future generation to look back and connect all the dots? It kind of makes you look at the calendar in a completely new way, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me for this one.